They called it crazy. They always do. Every time someone gets a little too focused, a little too intense, a little too unwilling to let go of a dream that doesn't yet exist, the world gets nervous. Because obsession is misunderstood. They mistake it for madness. They label it unhealthy. They say, take it easy. Don't go too far. Don't be so extreme. But the truth? Every legend was obsessed. Every world changer, every empire builder, every icon was possessed by a fire that wouldn't burn out. You don't build greatness on balance. You build it on devotion, on sacrifice, on the kind of tunnel vision that makes average minds uncomfortable. Thomas Edison didn't invent the light bulb because he was interested. He was consumed. 10,000 failures didn't stop him because he didn't see failure. He saw progress. Howard Schultz didn't build Starbucks because it was a nice idea. He was obsessed with changing how the world drinks coffee. Oprah didn't rise from poverty to power by trying a little bit of everything. She locked in on one vision: to serve, to speak, to elevate, and she refused to be anything less than that light. Obsession is not a weakness. It's not an affliction. It's the highest form of belief. It says, I'm willing to go further than anyone else. I'm willing to be uncomfortable. I'm willing to stay in the fire long after everyone else runs. You see, there's a difference between interest and obsession. Interest gets tired. Obsession gets focused. Interest gives up when it's inconvenient. Obsession gets sharper in the struggle. Interest tries. Obsession commits. And commitment is the currency of destiny. Because nothing worth building comes easy. And nothing powerful is born without pain. People forget this. They want the reward, but not the hunger. The spotlight, but not the solitude. The dream, but not the price. But the obsessed? They already paid it. They paid it in hours no one saw. They paid it in sacrifices no one clapped for. They paid it in discipline, in late nights, in early mornings, in lost weekends, in relentless pursuit. And they'd pay it again. Because obsession doesn't ask if it's worth it. It knows. It knows what the world cannot see. It sees 10 years ahead. It hears the applause before the audience arrives. It feels the weight of legacy before the first brick is laid. This is the power of obsession. It creates momentum in silence. It manufactures certainty in chaos. It builds when the world sleeps. It fights when no one believes. Because obsession isn't loud. It's not about noise. It's about focus so fierce it turns thought into force. The average mind calls it extreme. But the obsessed know. You don't change the world with moderation. You change it with fire. With a dream you carry so deep it becomes your second heartbeat. You wake up thinking about it. You go to sleep building it in your mind. You talk about it when no one listens. And you work on it when no one watches. Because it's not a hobby. It's not a phase. It's not a project. It's who you are now. Let the world misunderstand. Let them mock, dismiss, or doubt. That's fine. They'll join later, after the dream becomes reality. But you? You don't wait for validation. You don't chase approval. You chase excellence. You pursue that one thing that sets your soul on fire. Not with hesitation, but with obsession. You don't just want it. You need it. Not for the money, not for the glory, but because something inside of you knows. This dream was planted in you for a reason. And it won't leave you alone. It wakes you up in the middle of the night. It follows you into every room. It whispers when you're still, and it roars when you try to silence it. You try to live a normal life. But obsession makes mediocrity unbearable. It ruins comfort. It makes convenience feel like a cage. Because once your soul has tasted purpose, no amount of distraction will ever satisfy you again. You don't fit in anymore. And that's the point. Obsession separates the few from the many. It draws a line in the sand between, I kind of want it, and I will die before I quit. You start moving different. You start thinking in decades, not days. You don't need to talk about the dream anymore, because now, you are the dream in motion. People will ask how you do it, how you stay so focused, how you keep going when there's no guarantee. And the truth is, you don't try anymore. You're pulled by something greater, pulled by a vision so alive. It doesn't just live in your head. It's burned into your bones. This is why the obsessed never let go. Because they know, if they do, they'll have to live the rest of their lives pretending they didn't see what they saw, pretending they didn't feel what they felt, pretending they didn't believe. But once you've tasted that vision, Once you've glimpsed that higher version of yourself, you can't go back. You can't unsee it. You can't unfeel it. You're ruined for average. The comfort others crave now feels like a betrayal. Because you know what's on the other side of this obsession. You've seen the life. You've felt the freedom. You've heard the applause and the quiet of your mind. And you know it's not fantasy. It's your future. Waiting. Daring you to reach it. And obsession? Obsession is the bridge. Obsession is the fuel that makes discipline automatic. That turns sacrifice into satisfaction. That turns rejection into redirection. The world says no. You say, watch me. The world says, that's impossible. You say, not for me. Because the obsessed are immune to doubt. They don't rely on motivation. They're driven by something deeper. A sacred urgency. A quiet war. A vow they made to themselves in the dark. I will not die with this still inside me. They don't just want success. They want to become the person worthy of it. And that requires obsession. The kind of obsession that rewires your identity. That changes your decisions. That sharpens your instincts. That makes you do what most won't. So you can live how most can't. You don't dabble in this dream. You don't flirt with it. You marry it. You bleed for it. You become it. Because when you're truly obsessed, you don't chase success. You attract it. Through grit. Through clarity. Through the relentless repetition of invisible effort. And one day, when the results show up, when the world finally pays attention, when they ask, how did you do it? You'll look them in the eye and say, I never let go. Not because it was easy. Not because I always believed. But because I made a decision. To be the one who doesn't quit. To be the one who doesn't settle. To be the one who doesn't need permission to chase what burns inside them. Obsession made me unstoppable. Obsession made me who I was born to be. And here's the truth they don't teach in school. The lesson they never put in textbooks. You don't get greatness by trying your best. You get it by going all in. By burning the boats. By deciding that failure isn't the end. It's just another page in the legend. The obsessed don't keep plan B. Because plan A isn't negotiable. They don't entertain distractions. They don't dilute their dream to fit someone else's comfort zone. They don't apologize for their ambition. Why? Because they understand something the average mind doesn't. Obsession is not the enemy. Distraction is. Every wasted minute, every divided priority, every maybe someday, is a thief dressed in politeness. The obsessed don't leave the door cracked open for excuses. They slam it shut. And if they're locked out of opportunity, they build the damn door. They work in silence. They bleed in private. And when the results explode into the world, everyone calls it overnight success. But obsession knows better. It knows about the cold mornings when no one clapped. It knows about the lonely nights of self-doubt and silent tears. It remembers every moment of invisible labor. Every ounce of effort poured into something that didn't yet exist. Because that's what obsession does. It builds the future in the dark, while the world sleeps. It molds your character in private, so that when the spotlight hits, you're ready. Not lucky, not gifted, ready. And this readiness, this relentless pursuit, this identity forged in fire, it comes only from the obsession that refuses to fade. Let the doubters doubt. Let the critics scoff. Let the noise rise. But the obsessed don't hear it. Their ears are tuned to a different frequency. The sound of legacy. The beat of purpose. The quiet hum of becoming. And yes, it's lonely at first. But obsession isn't about company. It's about calling. And those who answer that call, they don't just leave a mark. They carve their names into time itself. Ford, Lincoln, Jobs, Ollie, Earhart, Disney. None of them balanced their obsession. They became it. They surrendered to it. They allowed it to reshape them from the inside out. So if you feel obsessed, if that dream won't leave you alone, if it keeps knocking even when you try to ignore it, that's not insanity. That's destiny. And you can either run from it or rise to it. But if you rise, if you choose the path of no return, if you embrace the obsession fully, without apology, without pause, then prepare. Because the world will shift. Doors will open. Resources will appear. People will come. Not because you wished for it, but because you became it. Obsession doesn't make things easier. It makes you stronger. It turns hesitation into habit, doubt into drive, resistance into rhythm. And in time, the world won't just see the results. They'll feel your presence. They'll know. This one never let go. Because obsession is not just fuel. It's transformation. It rewrites your instincts. It reshapes how you walk into rooms. It makes the impossible bend to your will. Because your will no longer flinches. Obsession doesn't negotiate with fear. It doesn't beg for support. It doesn't wait for applause. It walks through fire when logic says, turn back. It climbs when others collapse. It builds when others rest. Because obsession doesn't care how hard it gets. It only cares how real you're willing to become. Look at those who changed the world. They weren't the smartest in the room. They weren't born with maps or manuals. They were just relentless. They got laughed at. They got ignored. They got told to be more realistic. And still, they pressed forward. Why? Because obsession made the alternative unthinkable. To live a life unlived. To die with brilliance still inside. To know you were capable, but never did. That fear? That's the fuel of the obsessed. That's what gets you out of bed before the sun. That's what makes you train when others party. That's what keeps your vision razor sharp. Even when the world tries to blur it. You don't chase trends. You don't follow the crowd. You blaze your own trail. Not because it's glamorous, but because it's yours. This obsession, it will cost you. It will strip away your comfort. It will demand your time, your energy, your soul. But it will give you something greater. Clarity, conviction, character. You'll lose people. People who don't understand why you can't relax. Why you work weekends. Why you keep choosing the mountain over the meadow. Let them go. Because the ones who are meant to run with you won't ask you to slow down. They'll pick up the pace. And when the dream starts to take shape, when it begins to breathe, to live, to roar, the world will finally catch on. They'll call you inspired. They'll call you gifted. They'll say, you're so lucky. But you'll know, you weren't lucky. You were obsessed. An obsession. Obsession is what built the kingdom no one else could see. It's what kept your hands moving when your heart was breaking. It's what pulled you out of failure and threw you back into the fight. It's what made you indestructible. So don't just dip your toe in. Don't flirt with your calling. Marry it. Bleed for it. Lose for it. Rise for it. Because the ones who change the world aren't the ones who had the best ideas. They're the ones who never let go of them. That's the power of obsession. Not just to succeed, but to become. And when you become, when the obsession has burned away the doubt, when the noise of the world has faded beneath the roar of your purpose, when you stand where others said you'd never reach, that's when the world pauses. Not because it understands you, but because it finally feels you. They'll look at your life and call it magic. But you'll remember the nights of madness. The mornings when your hands shook, but you still built. The voices in your head whispering, give up. And the louder one inside shouting back, not yet. You'll remember walking alone. You'll remember the pain, the sacrifice, the silent screams into the pillow, the moments you questioned everything, but still moved forward. Because obsession doesn't require certainty. It only requires a decision. The decision to never retreat. The decision to pay the price. The decision to become the storm, not run from it. This world, it doesn't hand crowns to the curious. It hands them to the committed, to the ones who show up when no one's watching, to the ones who push when nothing is left, to the ones who chase mastery with the hunger of a beast, who hasn't eaten in weeks. Let them call you obsessed. Let them call you extreme. Let them say you're too focused, too driven, too intense. Good. Because the too much in you is exactly what this world needs more of. Too much belief, too much passion, too much discipline, too much fight, too much you. Because in a world begging you to blend in, the obsessed stand out not by shouting, but by becoming undeniable. They become the proof that it can be done. That fire can be controlled. That madness can build miracles. That obsession, when aligned with purpose, doesn't destroy, it creates empires. So if you're in that place now, the tunnel with no light, the war between your current self and your future vision, remember this. Obsession is the bridge, not motivation, not talent, not a lucky break. Obsession, the kind that keeps going when inspiration dies, the kind that says, I may not be the best, but I will outlast everyone. Because obsession doesn't clock out. It doesn't take holidays. It doesn't flinch under pressure. It rises. It smiles when others panic. It sharpens when others shatter. It thrives in the fire because it knows. The fire is how diamonds are born. So keep going. even if your hands are bleeding, even if your mind is tired, even if your heart is heavy, because the moment you refuse to let go is the moment the universe begins to move. It's watching you, testing you, waiting to see, will you break or will you burn brighter? And when you burn brighter, when you become the thing you once only dreamed of, you won't just inspire people, you'll awaken them. You'll give permission to the silent warriors, to the sleepless builders, to the misunderstood creators, to embrace their obsession and run like hell toward the edge of their own greatness. Because when one obsessed soul rises, it lights 1,000 more on fire. And that is how legacies are born.